Assalamu alaikum. Today on Nuran Academy, we're talking about the principle of multiplying success through mentorship. It really gets down to a fundamental question. Is your success a fortress that you need to guard, or is it a road that you can share with others? If you find benefit in this, please support us by subscribing and sharing it as a sadaqah. So let's dive right into this beautiful principle from our history. We're looking at a time when real success wasn't just about what you could gather for yourself, but about the legacy you built in other people. It was this powerful idea that knowledge and skill aren't personal property, but more like a sacred trust that's meant to be passed on. You see, this core belief really created a clear choice for anyone who was blessed with an advantage. Do you build walls around your success for your own personal gain? Or do you build a road for others to follow, creating something that lasts for the whole community? So, on one hand, you had people who hoarded their secrets. Sure, they got rich, but they were ultimately kind of alone in their success. And on the other hand, you had those who really understood that their skills were a responsibility, and they focused on lifting up everyone around them. And this brings us perfectly to the story of a man named Bilal. He was a master craftsman whose life is a perfect example of this second path. He lived by this profound idea that to hoard the knowledge given to you by Allah is to actually betray the very trust He placed in you. But Bilal's journey to becoming a master craftsman, well, it didn't start at the top. Like so many great stories, it started at the very bottom, with the humble, often overlooked beginnings of an apprentice. His training was all about service and quiet observation. Long before he was allowed to touch a masterpiece, he learned the rhythm of the workshop. He swept floors, he sharpened tools, and maybe most importantly, he just watched, absorbing every single detail in silence. And it was during this time, this period of humble service, that his teacher gave him what would become the single most important lesson of his life, a phrase that would guide every decision he made from then on. Skill is rizq, but teaching it is shukr. Now, these two concepts, rizq and shukr, they are the absolute bedrock of this entire principle. Rizq is the provision, right? The blessing, the skill that's given by Allah. All praises and glory be to Him. But shukr, true gratitude, that's not just a feeling you have or a word you say. It's the act of using that blessing in a way that pleases Him. And so often, the highest form of that gratitude is to share it. And this teaches us something so profound. Within an Islamic framework, ambition doesn't just stop once you achieve personal success. That's actually just the beginning. From that point, it's supposed to expand into a responsibility to use that success for the good of others. So years go by and Bilal becomes a master himself. He ends up owning the very same workshop where he was trained. He'd made it. He was successful. But now came the real test of that principle his teacher had taught him all those years ago. His stability, his whole business was built on his unique skills. He had developed these incredibly efficient methods, these really reliable designs, and that gave him a steady, comfortable income. He had a serious advantage in the market. And of course, the worldly advice started pouring in. His friends told him, Bilal, keep your process a secret. Don't train anyone too well or they'll just become your competition. And this created a huge conflict in his heart. The logic of the world on one side, and the wisdom of his faith on the other. And this brings us to a really critical question, one that's worth all of us pausing to think about. That advantage you have, is it mainly there to protect you, or is it, maybe without you even realizing it, limiting the potential of someone else? So let's see how Bilal's choice answered this very question. It was a choice that would go on to define not just his workshop, but his entire legacy. He chose the path of shukr. Instead of hoarding his knowledge, he gave it away freely. He trained his apprentices with genuine care, he patiently explained every mistake, and he built an atmosphere where questions weren't just tolerated, they were actually encouraged. Now, this decision had immediate effects. In the short run, his workshop actually became less efficient. Productivity dipped, errors went up. But just beneath the surface, something far more important was growing: the confidence and the competence of his entire team. And this is just a brilliant illustration of a key spiritual idea. Barakah, that tangible, divine blessing, that sense of abundance, it really enters an endeavor when your idea of growth expands to include the success of the people around you. As his apprentices grew into masters themselves, Bilal didn't just wish them well, he actively helped them set up their own workshops. So yeah, he lost his exclusive advantage, But what he gained in its place was so much more powerful. A whole network of fellow craftsmen built on a foundation of mutual trust and respect. And this really reflects a core principle of that era. The goal wasn't to build a monopoly that crushed everybody else. It was to cultivate a healthy, thriving ecosystem where everyone could innovate, contribute, and succeed together. But Bilal's commitment to this idea would face one last, even greater test. An opportunity that offered him pretty much ultimate control. A very powerful guild leader came to him with an offer: take exclusive control over all the training rights in the entire city. This meant more power, more profit, and the ability to basically wipe out all his competition with a single move. And Bilal said, no. That night, he wrote down why he refused, and his words just get to the very heart of his character and his deep faith. He wrote, "If my success blocks another's path, it is no longer success." Over the years, Bilal's own name started to fade, but his impact, it was undeniable. You could see it in the integrity and the quality of a whole generation of craftsmen that came after him. And that leaves us with a really direct question for our own lives. When your skills give you an edge, will you use that to build walls around yourself or to build bridges for others? Because really, the ultimate lesson from the craftsman's legacy is this powerful reimagining of what it means to achieve something. True success isn't just about rising to the top. It's about lifting pathways behind you so that other people can rise too. Presented and created by Neuron Studio.